you so much for joining us. Always great to have a visit from the senior senator from Massachusetts. I think you know who she is, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming.
Delighted to be here.
So, technology and especially technological innovation are absolutely crucial parts of our local economy. You and Lindsey Graham, interesting, kind of maybe another remake of The Odd Couple in the works here. You two have teamed up on a bill that would regulate the web through a new commission that would oversee and enforce new statutes. Give us a good example, if you would, briefly, of an area in which this commission would impose dramatic change.
So I'll give you two, actually, that would relate, if you'll let me. One of them is that right now, in the whole tech world, if a tech platform advances deliberately a lot of content that targets a child, and that child commits suicide, no matter how much you can draw the link, that tech platform is not liable legally. They have insulation from it, and there's no regulatory oversight. There is no place else in government where you don't have one or the other, except in the tech industry. And if I can, I'll give you another example.
Go ahead.
And that is Amazon. I get my Amazon packages probably just like you do. But here's Amazon running a Amazon Marketplace, a platform, and it collects information from every single purchase that comes through. It knows who's buying, it knows what they're buying, it knows what the charge is, it knows how people hovered over things, scoops up all that information, and then decides the little business that you've been running and you've been offering your goods on Amazon, they like what you're doing, so they decide to do the same thing. They don't put the Amazon name on it, they call it something else. And they go out and compete with you and just move you down in where you're found on the search. Not fair. Our antitrust rules were written back at a time when platforms didn't exist, so time to make some changes there.
Okay, so there's been pushback on this, of course. Two Wall Street Journal op-eds recently. One called your bill a disaster for tens of thousands of small and medium-sized tech businesses. Another suggests that your role models for this commission, like the FCC, the Interstate Commerce Commission, have, quote, frequently hindered innovation, sometimes drastically, were generally politicized and opaque, and often worked against the long-term interests of consumers, end quote. Okay. What's your response to this criticism? So
let's take a look at both of them, because there are two different kinds here. The question on, let's do the last one, Interstate Commerce Commission. You know, we have a long history in the United States of everybody gets out, they innovate, we create new things, and then a monopolist takes over, in effect. That's what happened with railroads. It's what happened with radio, and then later with television. It's what happens with nuclear. And so we decide as a nation, rather than letting those railroads decide which little towns are actually going to get access, which farmers are going to get access, how much you're going to have to pay, and how much they're going to self-preference, that is, only deal with the farms that are producing their work. We put in place an interstate commerce commission to say we're not going to do this anymore. We're actually going to have some oversight and get some real balance back into those markets, some fairness in the markets, so the rest of the economy that depends on that actually can flourish. And I think of that right now with tech. Think how much of our communication, think how much of our news, think how much of our commerce now goes through an area that's controlled by, in effect, a single decision maker who decides, you know, I'm going to wipe out John's business and prefer my own. Need some regulation over
I got to take my break, but
Sure.
Do you have the votes in the Senate?
You know, you have them when you start working them. Because here's the real question that Lindsey and I both ask everyone else, Republican and Democrat. If you don't want to do this, what is your alternative? We've worked out a plan, and by the way, just on the big, small, I know you got to take a break, but on the big, small, this plan actually says there's more regulation for the giants, for the ones that totally dominate their fields, basically the big six. And then it says for everyone else, just some basic rules of the road, like dealing in child porno or scooping up people's information and not telling them about it. Those can go ahead and innovate and create and develop without a lot of oversight. But the big guys, they need a little more.
Two-tiered system like that sounds like an invitation to a court challenge.
Well, you know, we do two-tier systems in banking.
Okay.
We do two-tier systems elsewhere because we say big presents a threat of its own.